Hey, change makers and visionaries. This is ReImagining Community, where we dive deep into the stories of leaders who are reshaping the world, one community at a time. I'm your host, Garland Fuller, and every episode is a radical act of connection. We're not just talking about change, we're breaking down how real people are creating it right here, right now. This podcast is more than conversations. It's a bridge where we are sharing stories that offer insight and inspiration. Whether you're an entrepreneur, consultant, volunteer, artist, or an organizational leader, this is your space to listen and learn. This is your call to create impact in the communities you hold dear and that hold you up. Let's reimagine what's possible together.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be on today. We're going to do a solo episode, but my friend Marissa will be on a little bit later to talk about how we love books. A book club is eminent because if you know nothing about me, I am always reading something, whether it's an audiobook or it's the actual book. And so we're going to have a conversation a little bit later about books and what we've been reading and things that have been influencing us in this time. So today I'm going to talk about the 4 horsemen of fear, or the 4 horsemen of the fear-pocalypse. I like that a little better because it sounds a little more exciting. I feel like what's happening right now in the world is there is a lot of fear, and some of it is real fear because we have a current geopolitical climate that is making it very real to have a certain identity in this world, whether you're LGBTQ, whether you are an undocumented immigrant, whether you have been considered an historically underserved population. Suddenly you have a government that is actively working to eliminate your existence, your experience. And so it's very easy to just feel, oh my gosh, I need to just hide. And people are actively hiding right now. If you've been reading the news, everything, it's a scary time. And what I know about fear is it is something that we sometimes know is hard for us. And so we hide. But there's also something to be said about facing your fears and looking them in the eye and saying, why am I afraid of this? And what is it saying about me? And what I have come across lately is this article written by Corey Wilkes, and it was a YouTube video as well. I'll put all of this information in the show notes. And he talks about fear and what we are afraid of when we have to do hard things. So due to the nature of what I'm doing, I think starting a business, working with primarily women, feels like it, who traditionally have not been, I'd say, included in business as the leaders, starting businesses, deciding to do something for the first time. If you're first generation in entrepreneurship, meaning there's no one in your direct line of sight that has owned a business, it can feel very overwhelming. Your imposter syndrome might start to rear up. You may think that you need to get one more degree, get one more certification, learn one more thing as a means of preparing yourself to go and do the thing. What I know, you just have to do it. It's something that I think is within you. And at some point, you have to just overcome your fear of saying, I don't know, and I need to just try this. So the things that he talks about, what he calls the 4 horsemen of fear. The first horseman is fear of failure. And I think we can all attest to that. And then the second one is fear of ridicule. Takes us back to, I think, our middle school days when making fun of people was a thing. The third horseman is fear of uncertainty. And the fourth is fear of success, which I think this one's always surprising because why would I be afraid to do well? So I can just go through these and tell you how they've shown up for me, because I don't think we can be authentic if we don't admit that we've had fears like this before. So, fear of failure. If you know anything about me, I am very much of a how can I exceed expectations? I want to be excellent. I was the honor student in school, so I was rewarded for being really good at something. And so, failure is what does this mean if I'm failing? How does this show up for me in terms of other things? And honestly, when you rephrase failure as lessons learned, you realize that there's actually nothing to be afraid of with failure. And it took me a while to get to that understanding of if I am failing at something, that means I don't know something. And if I don't know something, that means I'm learning it. And it's hard because sometimes when we're really good at things and we work to be really good at things, failure is like a slap in the face. And I think we live in a culture where failing people make you feel like that means you're not capable, you're not smart, you're not whatever. But in actuality, it's just there's a lesson there for you and hopefully an opportunity to do things differently, learn from that lesson and go forward. The second one, which is fear of ridicule, I think I overcame this in 2024 when I decided to get on TikTok and do TikToks because I was so, I think, concerned about what would other people think about me? Why am I getting up there? Why am I putting my face out there? Even doing this podcast on YouTube, just making yourself visible. You're afraid of being made fun of or someone saying something not kind to you. And then I think over the course of last year doing TikTok, I came to realize that, you know what? Everybody is not out for you. One, two, you're not that important, meaning there's a lot of stuff going on. If someone comes across your channel and they say something or write something, it honestly says more about them and their mental state and where they are than it sometimes says about you. And also, like, why not you? Why not you? You are people, you have a voice, you have an opinion. Why not you? So get over potential fear of ridicule. And if it happens, whatever, brush it off. Fear of uncertainty. So this one's big because if you've been one of these people who has followed the rules, and I can say that I think I've been one of those people, particularly earlier in my life and career, being first generation to this country, following the rules is essentially what keeps you safe. Following the rules is also how you assimilate. Following the rules is often how you're rewarded too, right? And if you're doing something that you haven't done before, if it's uncertain, it's new, you don't have a blueprint, a roadmap, you don't know that the next step you're going to take is going to be like the right step, it can feel scary to do something that you've not done before. And I think this one kind of fuels into all of the others, which is, will I fail? Will someone make fun of me? And that I think just compounds it. So what I think for me, when I get into uncertainty, I try to remember what I know, what I already have, what I've already done. And so it's hard to, I think, do that when you just focus on what you don't know instead of leaning on what you do know. What have I done? How have I been able to overcome certain things? I think about the song from Hamilton where he says, look at where you are, look at where you started. The fact that you're alive is a miracle. And so when you think about that, for me, it's you've done so much already. Lean into what you've done. And so when things are uncertain, things are unsure, there are certainties and sureties around you that you should also remember and keep close to you in order to move forward. And then the fear of success. And this one, I think, is where I am this year. And it's not that I think I'm going to be successful this year, but it's leaning into the idea of, like, what if everything goes right? What if things work out? What if everything that you've been envisioning, imagining for yourself, everything that you want to see in the world actually starts to happen? What happens then? Oh my gosh, does this mean what is going to change for me? And I think that's a part of sometimes playing it small. You play it small because you don't want people to see your light. You don't want people to know that you have greatness in you. And sometimes it's even hard to see your own greatness amidst fear of failure, fear of ridicule, fear of uncertainty. And so what I think I've been working on actively this year is, what if everything goes right? What if everything goes right? And it, I think, changes your expectancy. I know sometimes people say don't expect things because you don't want to be disappointed. But I feel like a part of expecting things to go well is you honestly rewiring your brain to look for the good stuff and to seek out what's going to work. And that gets really hard sometimes when the gremlins, the inner critic, the you're not good enough speak can sometimes creep in. I think you need to really just find ways to continue to just encourage yourself. And part of that for me has been building a community. The community part of Community Impact Collective, as well as just the spaces that I have not only held, but am also in, has been reminding me a lot of all of these things. A big part of fear of failure is sometimes getting some help from people who may know different things than you, who can help you get through certain things that you may not be good at. The fear of ridicule, I think that is all honestly triggering stuff from your past when people have made fun of you. And honestly, I think as you get older, your inner child needs that reminder that was either not you, not real, or honestly, you're holding on to it. And so you need to let it go. Thank it for, being able to go through those things, but then realize you're here now and you actually are safe and you're fine and you can do hard things. And honestly, if anything, it has helped you to be safe today. And then fear of uncertainty, I think when I'm in community, I realize, oh my gosh, like we all don't know what we're doing and we're all figuring out together. And so when you know you've got a group of people behind you and with you to help you, it makes it not feel so scary. And the success part, if you're making it and you're doing it by yourself, who do you share the joy of doing amazing work with? I don't want to get to the top of anything and be by myself. That just sounds terrible. I also just think, what did I have to do to get to the top to be by myself? Like, what kind of thing did I build that was lonely? Like, I'm by myself. And take that into consideration that I am an only child. So I think being an only child, being alone for me is actually not scary. But if I want to do something and do something that makes an impact, I want other people to be there with me. I want to have other people around me who are also benefiting and seeing the fruits of whatever it is. So I just want you all, when you're thinking about your fears to move forward, your fears to make progress, your fears to show up differently, your fears to take that first step, to even say out loud, I want this, I want to do this, I want to be this. Like, it's a real fear, but also know that if you are in community with other people who are supportive and kind and wanting your success, saying those things out loud don't feel so scary. So that's my hope. My hope for Community Impact Collective, my hope for working with organizations that are in a scary place, especially during these times, feeling targeted, feeling like maybe the work that we're doing is not going to go on because certain policies and certain procedures that are coming out are going to stop them. Some of this is real fear, and some of this is just stuff that we need to do hard things in order to get over. Just want to thank you for listening today. This is just something that's been on my heart. Been thinking about fear a lot and what does it mean? How does it show up? And my hope is that this segment is helpful for you. So now we're moving into Bookland, the book club. The readers are leaders in the world. I am so happy to have you back, Marissa.
Thanks, Garland. So happy to be here.
All right. So let's talk about first the solidarity shelf.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'd love to talk about the Solidarity Shelf. The Solidarity Shelf, for those of you who don't know, is a book club I started basically on the request of a community. They were like, we all have this book, The 100 Years War on Palestine. We all want to read it, but we can't get ourselves to read it. And I was like, oh, okay, I can set up something. Like I was like, I can set up something. So I built a little Discord so that we could have asynchronous conversations. Because I don't know about you, Garland, but when I'm in a book club, I have a really hard time if someone says you need to read X amount of pages by this day, or we're going to be on chapter this by this day. I don't read like that. I'm not a regimented reader. I will go all in on a book for multiple hours and then be done, or I will just read in little chunks. And so I wanted to create a book club that was accessible to all different types of readers, and everyone who wanted to join could join. So there's conversations that happen asynchronously in our Discord. And then we have live calls where we're just like, wherever you are in the book, let's take some time. Sometimes you need the community to read. I don't know also if you remember when I was in school, at least, we had Dear Drop Everything and Read time or independent reading time. And just having other people around while reading, or going to the library and having other people around while reading, helps me read more because I'm in community with these people, just being together with these people. So we have live calls every other week where that's our set aside time to interact with the book. And then we have a little discussion just based on whatever you picked up in your reading. You could be a few chapters ahead, a few chapters. We don't have any timeline. We're just setting a time for you to interact with this book. I've really enjoyed the experience because it's allowed many different people to come in at different times and different levels. And also, we set this book up for an entire quarter. So you have a quarter to interact with this book. We're not going to introduce any other books. We're not going to move on to any other books. You finish the book early, great. We'll see you next quarter. You don't finish the book in a quarter, it's up to you. Take it on. But those asynchronous conversations can still happen about the book. And I found that like reading in community really does help me interact with the text, especially with something like The 100 Years War on Palestine, because it is very dense. It is a very dense, almost like a history book that you would get in history class in college. And that's not before bed reading. Those aren't my
No, it doesn't sound like before bed reading.
yeah. It's not like the rom-coms that put me to sleep at night. But it is important to read, and it's important to have conversations with myself and others about the material. So that's the Solidarity Shelf in a
I love
nutshell.
it. Yeah. So I know it's interesting. I haven't been in a book club lately. And I
Yeah.
feel like when I was, it was more like school, like when I was younger. And so I've always wanted to bring a book club back because I like talking about the books. Reading the books is great, but I love hearing everyone's like perspective on something that they either never thought about or something that they thought was more of a something different than what they initially thought. And then this is bringing either a new reframing or a new idea, or just confirming something that they had felt but didn't have the words to actually put together. I love that the most about books. And if anything, there's maybe a few friends that I have that we will maybe read a book and then we'll talk about the book. But it wasn't a technical book club, but it was more like, oh, you recommended me this book. I read it. Here's what I thought about it. Love this book. And it almost feels like reading Rainbow. I don't know if you remember reading Rainbow, but
Butterfly
when
in the sky.
that's right. LeVar Burton is goals. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So I was a reading Rainbow kid, and every time it was on, I was watching. And that's, I think, what motivated me to go to the library. I would go to the library and walk to the library. This is like LA, so to walk to a library is a thing. And every summer, participate in summer reading. And then it really, I think for me, was like, oh, this is how I get to be a part of the reading rainbow by going to the library and reading.
Yeah.
And so it was that, I think, was my initial love and spark of reading. And then I stopped after college. I think college just drains your reading battery, at least for me. I went to school and we had readers in addition to textbooks,
Yes.
in addition to, and so you're just consuming so much that I think it's saturation. And so once I started working, I was like, magazines. That's about all I can read is a magazine. But I think about 5, maybe 7 years ago, I was like, you need to get back to reading. And it was Michelle Obama's Becoming
Ooh,
that
yeah.
got me back. It was gifted it for Christmas and I read it cover to cover, like staying up till 2 a.m., which I hadn't done. But when you're in a good book,
Yep.
you don't know what's going on. You don't have any concept of what's happening. I am here. I am hearing her story. I am like,
Yep.
yes, Michelle. And so it was such a great read. And I was like, oh, you need to be getting back into reading because this is like reminding you of what it is. And I think that started my memoirs thing. So I love a good memoir. I have read more memoirs, I'd say, than people probably think. And I think it stems from my own career storytelling, like background. I love hearing how people are telling their story about the work that they do, the people that they decide to marry, the people they decide to work with, the people they decide to do projects with, whatever. And it's just very fascinating because you can learn a lot about someone's value system. You can learn about their mistakes and their pitfalls. You can learn about how they have overcome things. And I think we all have a hero's journey, even though you may not see yourself as the hero sometimes in your own story. We are all heroes.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing opportunity to get a sense of what people are into. And then I've always been a self-improvement book person. I've been, I think, reading them when I was coming into my senior year and having to figure out, okay, who do you want to be in the world? Like, you've done all the school, you've done all the things there. Now you get to actualize into something. What does that look like? And so I went down a variety of rabbit holes around self-improvement books. And there's still something about them that I enjoy because I think it helps me to reframe how I think about things. It's very easy to get into your head about a way or a way of thinking. And then when you read, you realize, oh, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is something I can take with me. Or, wow, I really feel like I can do this in another way. Or I never thought about. So the one that I think last year, the two that kind of have, I was saying, blown my mind, but that's the emoji that I'm seeing in my head is Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And this book is really, I think, a testament to sometimes if you don't know how to do something, it's finding who can help you do it instead of thinking about how am I going to do it? Because I think we're so used to, especially if you're from a DIY state of mind where you're used to doing everything yourself or thinking I can figure it out. I just have to
Yeah.
do it myself. When you realize that you can ask for someone else to do it and have them do it not only quickly, efficiently, this is what they love to do, like this is their thing. Why would you try to do it yourself?
And I think when you take that route, you get the added benefit of community, like you were talking about earlier in the episode, of being in community with someone can help you overcome some of those fears. And when you ask the who question, as opposed to the what or the how, it opens you up to finding the right people, as opposed to another book, another system, another program, another class. So I really like that approach.
Yeah. And I think what has been interesting about that book, it speaks to my work that I do with people around what your special and unique ability is, what it is that you're really good at, that you could do all day, every day. If money were not a thing, you could do it because you don't even think about it. And so when you tap into that and you know what yours is and other people around them know what theirs is, what you're able to build is like
everything.
Unlimited.
Yeah.
Unlimited. And I think that's what's been so different for me this time around is, what does this mean for what you can do when you've got the right people around you? What does this mean in terms of what you can build and how that can look when you've got amazing people who are tapped into who they are and what they're good at? And I know that we don't think about community. For me, what a functional community looks like is when everybody knows what their thing is.
Yeah, and Garland, I have to say, you are good at finding what the person's thing is. I didn't even know what my thing was. You're like, this is your thing. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I was like, this thing that you think is a thing is a thing. Because you're like, I'm really good at this and this. I was like, oh, that's a thing. I was like, because there's a whole lot of people who a process, a system, a program, they look at it and they're like,
and
I don't know what to do.
I love this.
And this is you're like, I can eat, sleep, and breathe this. And I'm like, this is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen you do that with other people as well, as we've been in community with each other, just being able to look at other people's life and not push them in a like aggressive way, but nudge them and get them to consider something that is more aligned for them. And I've seen them take that step and really flourish in that way. And I think the question for me would be like, if I don't know how to find my gifts, who could help me find my gifts? And then find someone like you who could help me find my gifts. And I think that, again, just you have to know what question to ask, though, right? You have to know it's not like, who is going to change my life? That can be a question, because the only answer to that is me. But at the same time, who can help me change my life in this particular area about this particular thing, I think is a worthy question to ask.
100%. I know that I am not a system builder. I'm a systems thinker, but now actualizing that into an actual place
Yeah. And I think what we've learned by working together is you're a great vision holder and I am a good implementer. And there are a very few people who can do both. And can do both for a certain scale of project. But sometimes different projects need different teams. And sometimes you need to be the vision person for a particular project and hold that vision so that you're attracting the right people. And then I come in and I'm on the ground building the infrastructure for that vision. Of course, I'm not going to go anywhere outside the vision. You're there holding the vision. But in other cases, I'm holding a vision. I'm holding a vision for the podcast, or I'm holding a vision for my life and my things. And the role is flipped. I'm a vision holder for one thing, and I'm looking for implementers on the other end. And that, again, just goes down to knowing like what question you're trying to answer, what your strengths are. You know when you can hold a vision and when you can't. Know when you can be an implementer and when you can't, because I am not great at like reaching out to people and doing stuff but Garland, you're a great implementer at forming connections. Like you will be in people's inboxes, you will be in different things, and I'm like, I don't really know how to do that, but that's an instance where you are implementing and not vision holding in that way.
Totally I feel like I know a lot of people who are scared to reach out to other people because they're like, I don't know them and I don't know how they're going to receive this ask. And I think I've become even more bold after Who Not How to be like, I don't know, but you do. And so if I can ask you and we can work together, or you can point me in a direction, then I get my questions answered. We move forward. Life goes on. Everything is good. Yeah. And that works for me. And so I've been doing it for a while, but I've become even more, I don't say unapologetic, but just very, hey, how are you? This is what's going on. So do you know anyone? Because I'm looking for this and we need this in order to move forward. And most people are very like, oh, for sure. Yes. Here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, at least for me, sometimes doing that kind of work becomes more fun when I'm not thinking about the things that I'm dreading to do. That I have now that there's a support system, I can say, okay, I can do this. And this will be fun and more exciting than having to make a spreadsheet with all of the stuff in it or something like that.
100%.
I think that's
100%.
another gift of community is when you're asking the question, who, not how, you have the freedom to create things you don't even know could happen. Because if you think, at least for me, I know if I think the plan from A to B, and I think we've talked about this before, we don't know where B actually is. We just have to take step A1, A2, A3, A4, and readjust as we're getting there, because who knows what B could become if we're not. And if I've sat down and I said, hey, I have a plan from A to B, execute this plan, I could be cutting off so many other possibilities. I could be robbing myself of something. And but if you have the who's around you, you're able to say, okay, this is where we're at now. What do you see? Where could we go?
Yes.
What could we do?
And I think the big part of having the who's around you, when it's you, your ability to take a third party perspective or outside of yourself perspective is very hard. And so the beauty of having amazing who's around you is they can see things you can't. We all have blind spots. We are all in our heads about so many things.
Well, and especially in 2025, right? This is community care in a way.
100%. And so for me, I feel like what has been amazing about working within CIC has been, we had like last Monday, we had our Mindset Mondays. We were talking around how to help someone in that community think through possibly an app or possibly some means of her particular clients or caregivers are looking for something quick and easy. They don't have time to go through anything too laborious. And so what is a quick and easy solution? And how have we seen these show up in other places? And then how can we? And so I had seen somebody do something in a similar, reached out, and I didn't anticipate them not responding. That's the thing. I was like, I'm like, hey, do you know? Can you share? Keep in mind, I haven't been in touch with these folks in like maybe 8 months. They haven't heard from me. But I made such a, I think, strong impression there and was so present. There's something about being present in situation when things happen so that you're capable of even putting things together. So for me, that's what it's about. Showing up. Everywhere I show up, I try to be there. I try to actually physically be there, mentally be there, be present in those moments, because what I've come to realize is we're all connected, because that's one of my things too, is connectedness, which is probably why community is so important for me. When I'm connected to not only the people, but the why, the who, like I'm able to even faster create a sense of, oh, that's what we need. I remember I met someone, and that's what it is. And I think being a recruiter for as long as I was just doing this, I don't want to say by osmosis, but it started to become like so easy for me that now that I do it, I don't even think about it.
Yeah, it's magic. And in that instance, the person you reached out to got back to you super quick. It's like, oh, wow, okay, here's a resource. Here's a thing we can do. And that, I think, goes again to leaning towards your strength of being a connector and being that person. And if I were to be the person who would have contacted the person you did, it'd be out of left field. It wouldn't make any sense. The response probably would never have come. But in this instance, it was a resource that we needed to find, and you used your strength to make it happen.
Yeah. And then the other book by the same author, Dan Sullivan, it's called 10X is Better Than 2X. This one blew my mind because I think when you look at business and doing like your numbers for your business, you always are trying to double or triple. And they always try to make it seem if you have 100% and then you do 200%, then that's 200%. Like, oh my gosh, that's so great. But if you think about your ability to output something 10 times, like, what's the bigger thing? What is the thing that you're going to need to do in order to get there? And it taps into your special ability. It also taps into what you love to do more.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we're following roadmaps and blueprints of other people that we've seen or other things that are out there. But what I love about this book is really it's tapping into your own GPS, your own navigation, your own thing that you're doing. And they give really great examples of that in terms of scaling things, but scaling them in a way that makes it so that you're still in alignment with your values, still in integrity with the work that you're doing. You're not trying to boil the ocean and do all the things. And I think what I love the most is, particularly in the audiobook version, there's snippets of the author being interviewed by the man who helped them write it. And so that's
Oh,
also the quintessential who, not how.
for sure.
I have these ideas. I've been putting them into practice, but I am a terrible author. I know that is not my strength, my ability to communicate these ideas effectively. So I will partner with someone else that is
Yeah.
their strength. And I will share my story in a podcast style. He interviews this gentleman and asks him questions along the way, and then is narrating the rest of the book. It's actually I think after that, I thought, wow, what a different way to write a book.
And I think it's something that's becoming more and more accessible for people like us, like not the big time authors or big celebrities or stuff, because of course celebrities have had ghostwriters, and I don't think they wrote. I do think she probably didn't, but Tina Turner probably wrote her book. But
Here's the thing, even ghostwriters, the idea that someone helped you, but they're still not on, their name is not on the book.
correct.
His name is on the book with this man.
Oh, that is a different way of doing it. Yeah, for sure.
He's very much present. And
That's good.
and I think there's something to be said about giving
Collaboration.
shine to the people who are there with you through the journey and helping you to make the vision clear and plain. And I think we're so used to, we're going to give everything to this person to make it look like they were self-made and a one man or one woman show. And they did all the things when there is a whole host of people.
I think this comes up a lot in randomly in regards to like Beyonce and how she has like 800 gazillion people listed on her music where other people won't have that many people. And it's not that those people don't have that many people working on their songs with them. It's the fact that Beyonce is crediting the people who have worked on her songs with her. And there's a lot that you can say about Beyonce, but that is one thing that I really admire her for, because she's letting everyone know who these people are. She's using herness for goodness in this way. And I think the more we do that, it's anytime I see something is done by one person, I always have to think there's an asterisk somewhere, right? There's an asterisk. And also there's all of the people that help that person get to that place. And yes, I can read the acknowledgments, and yes, I can look at all of this stuff, and hopefully they're named there. But I like what you're saying happened here, where the collaborator was like really featured and acknowledged that this project wouldn't happen if they weren't involved.
Yeah. And I think there's something about moving into spaces of sharing, again, community, sharing stage, sharing the
Yeah.
spotlight, sharing the thing. And I think that's for me what I've enjoyed seeing this. I had a launch before that.
Yep.
Folks from the community were there to support me. Allison had a launch this week. We were there
Yep.
supporting her. We have
Yep.
another person who will be doing a launch in a few more weeks. We're all going to be there supporting her because that's what you do.
And I think that the more that we do that, hopefully, this is my dream. Times are what the times are, but we still have to hold that vision for the future, right? We still have to hold what we know is possible, even though our current reality is not showing us that. And my imagined future, is the that collaboration is the way, the community is the way. And I think if we are being public with how we got to certain places and being more vulnerable with that, we can break the individuality of our current system, and that is an act of resistance, and that is an act of rebellion, and that is taking steps to make the world a better place. And we have to do, even if you're thinking like, I am not doing anything, like just say somebody helped you and you're doing something. Like that's how I'm looking at it these days, is like the steps that we think we need to take to make change are actually quite smaller than we think that they are. And if we just take those baby steps, become kid steps, become adult steps, become giant steps, you know what I mean? They will all culminate. It's like a little snowball. So I would say, and this is a reminder to myself as well, just tell the world somebody helped you and see where it goes.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't take away. It doesn't do anything. I feel like it just rises. The rising tide lifts all boats. Let's do this together. And I just am I think, historically, ancestrally, like
It's
when
time.
you look at cultures and people who have done great things, they did not do that by themselves. That
Look
none
at
of this
any of the
happened.
movements that happened. Like you can name specific people, like in the civil rights movement, that were louder, were like, but they were all standing with people. Anytime you look at a picture from that era, it is not one person, it is a group of people. And that was just recent history. We didn't get here by one person doing one thing.
Yes. And I'm so glad that we have another opportunity to do it again.
And we, just to be 100% honest, we need to do it. If we don't want like the path that the world is going down, we have to take these steps and we have to do these things. And some of them are going to be scary, but you gave us a great talk on fear earlier in the episode. And we just have to go do things, but together, because it won't be as scary if we're together.
100%. I am going to close this up. We're going to do more of these one-offs. They're fun. And it'll be totally spare of the moment, whatever is on my heart at the moment, whatever I feel like sounds like a fun thing to talk about. But thank you for joining me today.
Always. Thanks for having me.
If this conversation moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because every week we're bringing you more stories of real transformation. Drop a comment, share your thoughts, and tag the folks in your circle who need to hear this. Want to go deeper? Check out the Community Impact Collective. Sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. Now is the time. Are you in?